Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 89. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas with me. Lucas, what's up, bud?
What's going on, man?
How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Getting ready we got some youth camps and stuff coming up, so I'm heading out to New Mexico. Stoked to get to do that.
Dude, that's awesome. You do that every year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this year, I think we're at like 9,000 feet, maybe like at some points close to 11.
Nice.
So, yeah, working on my cardio.
Dude, that's going to be great.
Yeah, by hitting that snooze button a couple extra times, I'm like, this will be perfect. This is what's really going to help me
All right.
fight the altitudes.
Yeah,
that couple
I'm sure
extra
that's going to
pounds.
help.
It is. I'll ask Jonathan about it. He thinks it's a good idea.
I would be willing to bet a good amount that Jonathan's not telling you to hit snooze.
It's going to be one of the new hump day health hacks. It's like, when is it a good time to hit snooze?
Good Lord. What does block Jocko from being able to see that post?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Leif.
And
Dave,
the pictures of our watches that show us what our training readiness is. That's, for those of you who don't know, the Garmin watch is incredible for tracking your sleep and your body battery and your training readiness. And one of the most common pieces of our text message thread between the two of us is when one of us will send the other a picture of our training readiness being a 1 for multiple days in a row. And we're like, oh, cool, same. Yeah.
Seems like everything's trending in a good direction.
Absolutely.
I will say, since I've been taking magnesium at night, so I take creatine in the morning, creatine at night, and magnesium at night.
Yeah.
And prioritizing, like, trying to get, like, a good amount of sleep.
For sure.
My training readiness has drastically improved. Like,
has it really?
Once I started taking the magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, and creatine at night, there is data that I have on my watch and the app that shows an improvement on all those
And you're
things.
sleeping and stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%.
Since I had a second kid, I've
it's
got
gone
data.
down.
I've got data that shows that no matter what I do,
It's pretty consistent with all people that have a second kid.
Yeah, so I just want to encourage all of you with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're worried about your birth control, you guys can come watch my kids for an afternoon, and it'll become way more effective.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, let's jump into some questions I've actually gotten recently in my DMs and just emails also, and then from events where clients have asked me things offline that we weren't able to get to during the Q&A. So, all right.
You ready?
Yep.
What was the hardest part of preparing for buds, and what would you do different now knowing what you know? What would you tell your younger self?
So the hardest part of preparing for buds for myself, I went into the military right after high school. So at the very end of my high school time, that's when I decided I wanted to go into the military and want to be a Navy SEAL. And I knew about the SEAL teams. I knew about buds. I had, books when I was a kid about, different Navy SEAL workouts and preparing. Knew about the screen test, and I knew it was very difficult, that not a lot of people passed that training. I had an uncle who was at the time he was still in the Air Force as a PJ. He was the tier 1.
Those are bad dudes.
Oh, at a tier 1 level as well, like working with SEAL Team 6, Delta, those guys, like that was his level that he worked with. I didn't know that at the time, and I always wondered when I was younger, I'm like, how is my uncle in the military, and how does he have long hair and a beard? Like, it just didn't make sense. And then I get in the military and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Uncle Matt, for never telling me any of these cool things.
Well, it's classified.
A lot of his stuff was.
Yeah, for sure.
Legitimate.
Like legit classified, not like, oh, what buds class were you in? Oh, that's classified.
I can't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, nerd.
Yeah, that's stolen valor classified, legit classified.
That's your first indicator.
Yeah.
But so I had my uncle who, that I was able to talk to, and told me like, hey, you really need to be focusing on these things.
Right.
And then one of my other uncles, he had a buddy that was a SEAL, that he knew, that he talked to, and was like, talking about all these things. And my dad also, he at one point, wanted to go into the military and be a Navy SEAL. And at the time, him and my other uncle were actually training to do that, and preparing for that. And they were like, early 30s, so they could still get an age waiver as long as they scored really high. So I knew what was needed, like the things I needed to be doing. And I was an athlete in high school. I played different sports. I used to do adventure races, like when I was in high school. I think we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Where, it's a trail run and a kayak and mountain bike and navigating, land navigation type of things, which I loved doing those things. And I was, 145 pounds, and I was lean, with the 8-pack, 10-pack sometimes, just depending on how lean I got. And, I was a really good athlete.
Yeah.
And so the running wasn't a big deal. I grew up in Northern California. There's lots of trails to go running on. And I would do mountain biking and trail running a lot in my free time. Like, that's what I would go do. Swimming, I grew up doing swim team growing up and played water polo in high school. My senior year. Yeah, my senior year I played water polo.
That looks like way aggressive.
It is. That's why I loved it. That's why my brother and I, Corey and I, played water polo. He was a junior. I was a senior. My sister was a freshman. We all played water polo.
That also seems like a sport primarily for guys that are above 6 foot.
Yeah, but guess what? We all dominated.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I'm like,
so is it like your ability to tread water, or did you like bounce up off the bottom? Was it just because you were a stellar swimmer? Like,
we were strong swimmers, strong in the water. We were very comfortable in the water.
Knew how to do a choke hold?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
There's a few times we might have cleared the benches from our teams. One of my buddies, Justin, that played, his nickname Scooter. He talks about that a few times. Just big fights in the pool. But
which,
yeah,
like when the bench is clear in water polo,
it's chaos.
Yeah. So that seems like a lifeguard's nightmare, but it also seems like it would be more of a funny video than it would be like really understanding the intensity, just because of all the splashing.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't know what's going on or anything like that. Like a baseball fight, like you watch the benches clear. And a water polo fight is everybody just like jump into the pool and start.
Oh, guys are still swinging and trying to hold people underwater. I mean, it's a serious thing.
Yeah, that seems way more dangerous, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, played water polo in high school. Was team captain, MVP of the year.
Nice.
My coach actually talked to me. Some water polo coaches from UC Davis. They come in, they watch games, and we're scouting, and they were watching me, and they told my coach. They're asking about me, and my coach said, "Yeah, he's only played 1 year. This is his senior year," and they're like, 1 year water polo, he's doing well. So they had told my coach that if I went to a JC and played water polo and was at that same level still, then there was a very high potential for me to have a full ride to UC Davis.
Yeah. And you were like, you know what? That sounds a little too posh for my blood.
Well, it sounded awesome at the time because I hadn't
I want to go free
trending towards the military yet. I hadn't even had those thoughts yet. But so the reason why I say all that is I was very comfortable in the water. I was a strong swimmer. However, I have this very, legitimate fear of drowning.
Yeah, we've talked about
claustrophobia.
That a few times. Yeah.
And so, for me, it was getting comfortable under the water, being able to hold my breath and to be able to work through problems under the water, because I knew that's a really big thing going through bud. So for me, the hardest part was shifting my mindset to being comfortable in cold water, which, the lakes in Northern California, they can get cold. The rivers are definitely, you have the water coming from the Sierra Nevada. So the rivers, for the most part, are cold, and, different times of years, it can be really cold. And so for me, it was just learning how to control my breathing when I was in the water, and learning how to get comfortable with breath holds. And so what I did is, the running was no issue. So I would go and park by the American River, and I would run the trails down to the San Juan Rapids. And then I would go spend hours swimming in the river, swimming upstream. So my swims were in the river, swimming upstream to strengthen my swimming. And then I would practice breath holds where I'd go down to the bottom of the river and pull myself upstream using the rocks at the bottom of the river.
Really?
And I would do that over and over and over. And now my buddies would go down there, and they knew I was training, and I'd hang out, and, they're, Danny talks about it. He's like, yeah, all of a sudden JP would disappear, and then all of a sudden he'd appear upstream and then float down, and then I would do it again, and I would practice, holding my breath down in the rapids, getting just tumbled all around, and, just getting comfortable being in awkward positions upside down, literally just getting,
just getting rolled.
Getting rolled.
Yeah.
And being able to, remain calm, and then being able to work out of those situations. So that's what I had to intentionally focus on every single day. Because if I was in a pool and people started roughhousing and playing around, I would get nervous and get out of the pool. Because I don't like play fighting in the water. Yeah. I don't like
it. You liked real fighting in the water, though, it sounds like.
Well, yeah. But I don't like it when people are, but even then, like you would, fight in the water and part of that is like you're shoving people underwater and swimming over them. And like, water polo is nasty. I mean, guys will be swimming. You'll grab their ankle, pull them back, swim over, grab their shoulder and dunk them and swim over them. But you're not holding them down for a long period of time. Like even in the fights, you're not holding somebody down underwater trying to kill them or drown them. It was just part of the scrap. Yeah. The thing I don't like when people are playing around at pool parties, for the most part, they don't know that. Yeah. They're playing around and guys will get held underwater, or, if there's like pool toys in the pool and somebody's in a raft and they're over the steps. Well, if somebody tries to come up underneath those steps and they can't get up, they're now trapped underneath that. That happened to me when I was a kid. I got trapped underneath a raft on the steps. I was swimming up underneath it. And as I was swimming up underneath it, I was, playing Navy SEALs when I was a kid. I was like, cool, I'll swim over here. I'll come up under the raft. I'll pull it away from the edge of the pool. I'll get like a little breath of air on the side of the pool and the raft, and they won't see me come up. And as I was underneath the raft and on top of the step, my buddy Kyle Franklin's dad, Greg Franklin, who was about 350 pounds, got into that raft and trapped me. Yeah. And he didn't know I was underneath him. Couldn't feel anything, and he was sitting there. I could not get out. Yeah. And so I had a legit like panic moment, think I was going to drown type of thing. And so I had to get comfortable just being able to be in the water, hold my breath, think through things. But yeah, so for me, that was the biggest thing. The running, the push-ups, the pull-ups, the sit-ups, I was already good at that, but I knew where I needed to be. Right. And so, I was decent at pull-ups, but I wasn't strong, and I knew I needed to be strong because the SEAL screen test, when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's not a lot of pull-ups. What guys don't understand, Titus and I were doing this the other day when we did that little pull-up challenge thing, and then we were like talking through it.
Which also, Rob Jones, you're a jerk for the incognito tag on that. I just want you to know.
Did you ever do yours?
No, I told him I was going to have AI generate them for me. I just haven't had the time to get it coded.
You haven't made that a priority?
No.
And, so knowing that those pull-ups are difficult because you're doing it after the swim, the push-ups, the sit-ups, and then you do the pull-ups and the run. But with the pull-ups, it's like, all right, everybody get on the bar, and you're hanging there. I'm like, all right, everyone get up there. All right, everyone stop swinging. No swinging, no movement. So they're just making you do a dead hang for a while. Yeah. And the first 6 are on their count. So they're like, all right, everybody up. All right, come on, get your chin over. Everyone's chin's over. Come on, guys. And so you're holding with your chin above until they say down. And then when they say down, everyone counts 1. All right, guys, come on. Hey, no, stop swinging, stop swinging. Nobody's moving, right? Right. And so it's only 6 pull-ups, but it's after you've done that 500-meter swim, push-ups and sit-ups, and it's at their count. So you're probably doing like chin over the bar, 3, 5, 7 seconds before they let you go back down.
It's miserable, man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then after that, the rest are all on your own. And
how generous.
I know. Very nice of them. Very nice.
Benevolent.
And so I knew this.
Yeah.
Because that's what my uncle had told me. He's like, hey, the pull-ups are legit. And my uncle had a pull-up bar that they had at their squadron that it was in the doorway. And every time you went in and out of the doorway, it was 5 pull-ups. Like really? That was their rule. Yeah. And so as a kid, I had a pull-up bar in my doorway at my house, in my bedroom that Corey and I shared. And so I would do that as well. I'd be like, all right, cool. Every time I'm
5 in, 5 out.
Do at least, 2 pull-ups. And then because he told me, he's like, at least do, if you can do 2 strict, cool. If you can do 3, awesome. But you want them to be strict. And he goes, find out what you can do strict. Only do that amount each time until you can add 1 number. And then it came to the point where I could do over 20 strict pull-ups.
That's awesome.
And then I would do a pull-up pyramid workout leading up to Buds that I also did when I was in Buds. And I remember me and a few of the guys, like, I still remember, and 2 of these guys made it through training as well. One's still in, one just retired. We, the group of us, we did a pull-up workout, and it was a pyramid going by 2s all the way up to 20, do 20 again, and then all the way back down.
Wow.
So I was do 2 pull-ups, you do 2, the other guy does 2, the other guy does 2, okay, cool, now you do 4. And working all the way up to 20, you get your 20, then you do 20 again, and then down to 18 and work your all the way back down. So
that's right.
I showed up to buds being able to do that. Even like, and that was what I would do out at the end of like a back workout.
Nice.
And so
you were prepped for that part of it.
Yes, I was prepped, but like the hardest part was just mentally being able to shut off the fear of drowning and claustrophobia, and just understanding like, okay, hey, they're going to teach you everything that you need to learn. So the only way to learn is to have an open mind.
Yeah.
And if I'm afraid and scared, I'm probably not going to be able to listen very well and retain whatever I need to retain. So I just put myself in that mindset.
Yeah, and I know we talked a little bit that part of the motivation for you is the idea that like, hey, if I don't get through buds, they might put me on a submarine, which would be like worst case scenario. So
yeah.
So when you enlisted, did you enlist on a SEAL contract?
Yep. So went into boot camp, said I want to be a Navy SEAL, and started that process. I've shared that story before.
Yeah. So do you just go straight from boot camp to buds?
No. So the way it was for me, and it's shifted and changed now.
Sure.
And so I can't speak 100% for what it is now. I think I know what it still is. When I went through, it was boot camp, then A school. A school is your job. So it's schooling for your job.
That's right.
That you would have. So my rate was HT, whole technician. So I went through boot camp, and then there was like a little A school prep, like learning more about the Navy. You're a sailor. You need to know about the Navy. Which they teach you in boot camp, but there's like another little thing while you're waiting to class up for your A school to start. And then you do your A school. I went through that. And then after A school, my next set of orders were San Diego to go to buds.
That's cool.
And so I checked into buds in April of 2002
right
with
on.
class 242. Graduated with class 242, which was awesome to be able to start and finish with that same class.
That's rare.
Passed every evolution the first try except for one. And almost, I think everybody but one in our class failed it because they switched out these fins on the tread.
Oh.
And then but I remember our class leadership went to the buds instructors and were like, hey, this isn't fair data. Like we're having to do a test with fins that have never been used before.
Right.
Everybody but one failed. So the next day we got to use the old school duck feet fins, and I passed.
Nice.
And a majority did. And some guys failed again. And so some guys got rolled or dropped from not being out, because it's a very difficult test.
But I mean, at least you're testing with the gear that you prepared to use.
Yep,
right?
100%.
Yeah, so.
And that was the other thing. The guys were like preparing for that test after hours with the duck feet, and then they switch it to these stupid diving fins, which are great if you're diving.
Right.
But the duck feet, you need that power to be able to generate, to be able to tread with the 180s on your back, with the weight vest or weight belt and all that stuff.
Right.
It's a 5-minute tread where your hands can't go in the water. Yeah. It's miserable.
Yeah, it doesn't
and
sound
so
like
if you don't have
fun.
the right fins, you're not going to do it.
My
except for
ankles
that
hurt just
except for
thinking
that
about it.
one dude, and he was an unreal athlete.
Was it
whatever's above phenom? That's who he is.
Was it the Vanilla Gorilla? Was it Ben?
He failed too.
Oh, Wallach failed too. Well,
yeah.
Look at that, Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though he was a monster on the O course, that's the one thing like from that episode that everybody has asked, or I say everybody, that the people who listen to it that have come up to me and have questions about that, they always ask me, they're like, so does Ben like look like a super athlete? It's like, no, Ben looks like the kind of guy that you just like absolutely would not want to mess with.
Yeah.
But then that you think like, yeah, he could probably do that. But he doesn't look like he'd be super fast until just like sitting down talking to him.
Yeah.
But when he starts to, like when he got up to get his bag and everything, his movements are so fluid.
Yeah.
That
very
was the
efficient.
thing. Like as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, this is why he's dominating.
High level operator.
Yeah. 100%.
So what would I do different now? I would still have spent all the time I spent with my friends hanging out, but I just wouldn't have been drinking.
Yeah.
I was drinking a lot, like with my friends, even though I was underage, I don't think I can get in trouble for that now.
No, I think the statute.
I think 24 years later, I'm okay with that. Yeah. And my parents know that. And my dad knew that. And my dad would know when I would be out drinking with my friends. I'd show up to work because I did construction with my dad that summer. And, magically the 90-pound jackhammer was there for me to do work.
Crazy?
Yeah. It's so strange. Yeah. And he would make it miserable for me. which he should have.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that he did. So I learned that lesson. So if I was to do it different, I'm sure there's a few things I'd change if I really thought about it. But the number one thing, I wouldn't have been drinking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been staying out drinking all night. I would have stayed out with my friends, hanging out, create memories, and, because I like being with my friends and I knew I was getting ready to leave. But I definitely would not have been drinking.
Yeah.
I was talking to Aiden about this because, he's wanting to go in the Marine Corps and starting that path. And I told him, I'm like, hey man, you need to be on the path like Jocko was, and a few other people that we know that recently made it through training. Mm-hmm. Be a straight edge, man. Like the punk rock scene.
Yeah.
No drugs, no alcohol, working out, be in shape. I was like, if I could do it over, I told him, I was like, that's what I would have done. I said, because I wasted so much money, time, talent, potential over drinking.
Dude, the amount of money that is thrown into just hanging out, right? We'll just put it that way, just hanging out and having a good time. Even though when I was on my first couple of tours, I didn't drink, but I made a ton of money and I have no idea where it went.
Oh yeah.
Because it went to hey, you know what? Yeah. I'll, even though I'm not drinking, hey, I'll buy this round.
I'll buy a round.
Or yeah, for sure. Or you know what? I'll pay for the food if you guys, buy your own drinks or whatever, because I knew the guys were going to be spending a ton of money.
Yeah.
Or, I want to do this. My buddies don't have the money to do it. It's all right, no, yeah, I'll just pay for everybody.
Oh, I did.
Right? And then so we do that stuff all the time. There's enough other places for that money to disappear that it doesn't need to be in the bottom of a glass.
Yeah, 100%. And so if I think back and be like, all right, maybe you calculate you going out with your friends, and if I could go back and do it over, I would. And it's easier said than done.
Oh, for sure.
But this was a question, so I'm gonna give it to them. And this is what I would tell Aiden and anybody else, that's young going. Or actually, this applies to everybody in life. Mm-hmm. But let's say an average of, on the low end, $60 up to $100 of going out drinking. Per night. Go out with your friends. Get a water and a soda, or a soda or whatever, free refills, get some food, and while your friends are drinking, you're drinking water, and kind of gauge how much they spent, and then I would take that money from your account and shift it over to a savings account, and just keep it there, or and then at the end of the month, take that money and put it into an annuity, or an IUL, or some fund that's gonna do well.
Yeah,
and just imagine if you did that every month for 5 years.
Dude, this is something that Tim Ferriss talks about.
Oh, cool.
Is that so people that impulse spend, because they're I can never do any of the stuff that you do. I just, whatever. He's instead of buying the $10 item at the impulse counter that you all of a sudden cannot live without, he goes, open up your app for your banking app and transfer $10 from your checking to your savings. Right? Hey, you know what? And now you've got that same little dopamine hit, but instead of, hey, you know what? I spent the money. I got the thing that I'm going to throw away in 2 weeks or 2 years or whatever. Now, I spent the money. Now it's going towards my future. And so, yeah, that's a pretty cool little life hack, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know we've gone a little longer on this question.
That's a good question.
But yeah, there's 3 parts to that. So.
Yeah. Next one. What was your mindset going through buds? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I touched on that, and I've talked about this a handful of times, but I get this question often. The thing that helped me go through buds was I get to do this. I would legitimately tell myself I get to do this every single day. I had my little routine. I'd wake up in the morning, and I had these strawberry Slim Fast drinks in the can.
Okay, yeah.
And I would take that because of just all the nutrients that were in it, and because I knew one of the things was guys would get injuries from just shin splints and their body just being broken down, not enough nutrients, even though they feed you well in going through training.
Yeah, but vitamins, electrolytes, all those things that help your muscles and stuff.
Yeah.
They're not always in all the food.
So I strawberry Slim Fast every morning.
Nice.
And I would look out the window at the ocean, even when it was pitch black and you're up super early. And I would just be like, man, I can't believe I get to do this today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm in a serious relationship, but they do not want me to join the military. What should I do?
Oh, man. This could apply to all things, not just joining the military.
Probably.
I don't, I'm in a serious relationship, but they don't want me to go in law enforcement, or they don't want me to be a firefighter.
Or they don't want me to go into ministry. That's a huge one.
They don't want me to go into ministry. They don't want me to take a promotion because I might have to move, or they don't want me to do this job because it takes, or
they don't want me to be on 100% commission.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Which I get that.
Hey, all of those are legitimate.
Yeah. Or they don't want me to go to college because I have to move away.
Mm.
So I would give the professional, empathetic response. Because you want to know what my initial response is?
Yes.
Break up with them.
Yeah, 100%.
Break up with them.
Like, there's a difference between a serious relationship and a marriage.
Yeah.
If your wife doesn't want you to do that, this is a different conversation.
But I know somebody's going, well, we're thinking about getting engaged and getting married. Okay. So you need to have alignment with that person.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's about misalignment. Mm-hmm. And if somebody isn't going to support you pursuing your dreams of going in the military or any of the other things that we talked about.
Or your calling, right? Because for so many people, civil service, whether it's ministry, whether it is being in law enforcement, whether it's being in the military or any of these other things, like that's a calling. It is something other than just like, oh, I've always dreamed of doing this. It is like, this is the pressure on my heart and soul to do this, to have fulfillment, to fulfill my purpose in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do that, you have to be all in. Yep. In order for me to make it through Buds, I had to be all in. And if you're going to go in the military, you need to be all in.
Yep. With
your preparation, with your mental mindset. Like when you're in the military, you can't be distracted by somebody back home, or it has to be your focus. And I know I'm like preaching to the choir on this right now, and I'm talking to my younger self because I had serious relationships that made me kind of question things when I was younger. But at the end of the day, the military was number one, and the SEAL teams was number one to me.
Yeah. And
I had to have that mindset. And I like what you said. Calling is one of the things that I was going to talk about on this. Is just outside the military. This applies to everybody. It's if you feel like something is your calling, it's what you should be doing, and somebody does not support that, then I'm telling you, long term, that relationship is most likely not going to work.
Yeah.
Unless they had a major transformation themselves and shift of their heart and their support and what they're doing. But if somebody's not willing to support you with doing something that you feel you're called to do, then cut ties.
Yeah.
And cut ties and just know that, okay, hey, that person, while they were a great relationship, a great person in your life, they're not meant to be with you long term. Yeah. That was this window, this chapter of your life. You need to pursue your calling, and when you pursue your calling, God will bring you who's needs to be in your life to support you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There was I had a girl that I was dating that moved to Spain to do what is it called? Foreign exchange kind of program. So she was a study abroad. That's what it is. So she was doing study abroad. She was going to be there for like 8 months. And I was installing security systems at the time, and there was this Danish couple who had just gotten their citizenship. And we were talking, and they're so happy to be American citizens. Yeah. They're so happy, that they get to be American citizens from Texas, because all their family back home in Holland has just thought that it was the craziest thing, that they had, relatives in Texas now that were riding their horses back and forth to work and everything else they think that we do. And they asked me about, we were just talking, so they asked me about my girlfriend, and I told her that she had moved to Spain, and they were like, "Oh, and you didn't go?" I was like, "No." And the wife looked at me, and she handed me so she doesn't say anything. She comes back a few minutes later, and she hands me this bottle of champagne. And she was like, "Listen, open this in a year." I was like, "Okay." She goes, "Because I bet you didn't go to Spain with this girl. You don't really love her. She's not the one. Here's this bottle of champagne. Open it in a year and think of us whenever you do." And then she handed me this coaster, and I still have it. It's on my nightstand. And it's a picture of the White House, and it's got the date that they made their pledge to the United States and became U.S. citizens. She got one, her husband got one. She gave me hers and this bottle of champagne, and she was like, "There's somebody different out there for you. Look at this and always remember that she's not the one. You don't love her." And sure enough, man, I went and visited her on Valentine's Day. She broke up with me on the way home to the airport, and then I got stuck in Spain for like another week. It's a whole. We'll have to get into that story sometime.
Sounds awesome.
But I've got all of that stuff on my nightstand. And Kirsten's asked me about it a couple of times. She's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "This is the reason that we're together, is because this Danish lady was like, 'Hey, you don't love this person. Hold out for the right one.'" Like just wild. But it is, because we had no alignment on what we actually wanted to do with our lives, and that was it.
And it's hard for people to receive what we're hearing, because when you're in a serious relationship, you're emotionally involved.
Oh yeah.
And when you're emotional, how often do you? Now, I'm not saying emotions are bad. There's a difference. What I'm saying. Yeah. I'm not saying do not have emotions. What I'm saying is, do not make decisions when you are emotional.
Yes.
And if you're emotionally connected to somebody and that's guiding your decisions, there's a difference between logic and emotions. you can make logical decisions for life based around a relationship that you're involved in emotionally. There's you have to be able to determine the difference. Yep. I was really bad at this when I was younger.
Me too.
Hard on my sleeve. Wanted to get married at a young age. Yep. I wanted everything that my parents had. Married at a young age, kids at a young age. I thought that was like what I needed to do. And when I think about that, man, I damaged so many relationships, and I damaged people, these other women that I was with, because I shouldn't have been in those serious relationships.
You're putting so much pressure on it in order to like make these things happen. When like you could have just laid back.
Yeah.
And the extra amount of stress, like, oh, we had an argument and now I can't sleep, but I know I've got a 5-mile run in the morning and a like whatever swim. That's miserable.
Dude, that happened to me one time when I was new guy. We were doing the command PTs.
Yeah.
And I remember I was so mad at myself. Not at her, but I had been up late arguing with my serious girlfriend. And I remember coming back to my apartment and talking with my best friend Curtis, who is actually now in the teams, that's another crazy fun story.
Yeah.
But him and I were roommates, and I remember talking with him, and I was like pissed. I was like, man, because I was a strong swimmer, right?
Yeah.
Guess who came in almost last on the swim?
No way.
Me. Bro, it was a run, swim, run. I came in almost last, and I was furious. Yeah. Furious, because I was smoked. I was exhausted, mentally fatigued, physically fatigued from literally getting almost no sleep, and, drinking, arguing, all this stupid stuff. And I told him, I was like, bro, no more. I can't do that. And he was like this like voice of encouragement to me. He's like, bro, you got to cut that. Like if that's he's like, you can't be the new guy coming in last. And he's not in the military at the time.
Yeah.
He's going to college, working at the front desk of the gym of the apartment complex we lived in, but yet very intelligent, very wise, and being a best friend, legitimately being a best friend, listening to me and saying, bro, you got to cut this, or you need to like reset expectations with her. And he was spot on.
Yep.
Yeah.
How did you handle leadership positions at a young age? I have a lot of older people who now work for me that have been in the trade for a long time. I'm a new leader in this company with no experience in my industry, but I am now in charge of them because I hired for this position because of my college degree. You know what my immediate reaction to this is? Oh, like, hey, college boy, how's it going? Like that's the blue collar, not impressed with your college degree guys that I grew up around. That's it. But I've also been in this position, and so I'm curious as to what you would say, because there's a little bit of this that's the position that I'm in now.
So there's times that I handled it well and times that I did not handle it well.
Yeah.
And I think back to there's a few times, like, so for instance, when we got to Ramadi, I was, one of the youngest guys, one of the most junior ranking guys in the platoon. Jocko and Seth put me in a leadership position when we got to Ramadi, which means I was in a leadership position over my peers that were older than me, more experienced than me, more time in the Navy. And this is one of the times that I am thankful that I had watched and listened and learned from other guys around me. And when that happened, I remember just talking with the guys, and it was, hey, what do you think we should be doing? Hey, so-and-so, you're a breacher. You're the expert at that. Like, you're going to be taking lead on all the breaching stuff. Hey, so-and-so, you're in lead at this, blah, blah, blah. And me just, like, explaining to the guys, like, hey, my job is just to take care of you guys, support you guys with Seth, get alignment with Seth on what we're doing, help out with the mission planning, do all that stuff, be Seth's right-hand man, kind of, him and Benny. Benny was acting as our platoon chief.
Yeah.
And
he sounds awesome.
Dude, I know.
I'll fly him in. I'll pay for it. You know what? I won't even pay for it. I'll get my pilot's license, go to where he is. Like, that's how much effort I'm willing to put into this.
I know. It would just, him getting out of his comfort zone and doing a podcast interview. I wish. I mean,
what does he need? Does we need to bring Mrs. Benny here, and then she can just be by him the whole time?
It's Benny being just super humble.
Yeah.
Like, I have a picture I'll show you of him and I. And, his rack, like, they would joke, they called his trident a parrot because it was, like, all the way up here.
Good grief.
Yeah, the guy's an incredible human. Yeah. One of my best friends in SEAL teams who really showed me what good leadership looked like. And so I learned these things from Benny, who's a younger guy, lower ranking guy, put in leadership positions. Like, any of the good things I did as a leader, and I did a lot of bad things, I learned a lot of lessons. The good things I learned from Seth and Benny.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Jocko at the higher level, but Jocko was so much like higher and disconnected. I was never going to be a task unit commander.
I believe he's referred to as the big boss man.
The big boss man.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot from Jocko and a lot from Leif and a lot from Seth. Benny, yes, that was just a different special relationship.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
And so learning from Benny and these other leaders like Bob Holland and Charlie Batoon, Jeremy Beal, those guys, is them just asking the guys like, hey, what do you think we should be doing? And I look at it also from the military. You had officers that come in. Well, an officer goes to college to get their degree, and they might literally come straight from college, go into the Navy, go through BUDS, go through the leadership training, go through SQT. Now they're in a platoon as the AOIC, Assistant Officer in Charge. Well, guess who technically they're in charge of? Every enlisted guy below them.
Okay.
So the platoon chief, a guy like BTF Tony, who has 15, 17 years in the SEAL teams, that junior officer is essentially in charge of Tony. He outranks Tony.
No, he doesn't.
I agree.
Yeah.
And guess what the good leaders knew?
Yeah. No, we don't.
Yep, 100%. And guess what I would see good junior officers do? Hey, Chief, this is what we got going on. What do you think we should do? And so I tell leaders, so for me, I get this question a lot in the construction industry where you have project managers, PMs come in, and they have their college degree, and now they're hired as a project manager. And so this 23, 24, 25-year-old man or woman is in charge of a crew where that guy's been doing, or gal has been doing construction for 20, 25, 30 years.
Yeah, and they're almost in their 60s, and they don't want any of your 23-year-old garbage.
They're the age of their parents.
Right.
The good leaders that are young come in and know that their job is to support the men and women that are doing the work.
Yeah.
And the only way you do that is by building a relationship. That's the only way. That's what leadership is the ability to lead and influence the people around you. And so if you're a young leader, the number one thing you should be focused on, the number one thing, especially as I said, with no experience in this industry, is building relationships while you learn about the industry.
Yep.
And so you build relationships, you're asking questions, you're trusting your people, you're showing them respect, you're allowing them to influence you, trusting them, showing them that you actually care about them, taking care of your people. And you do that by building a relationship, asking them good questions. And that's how you also learn about the industry. And if I were you, I would have a notebook with me at all times. Every time you sit down with these senior experienced individuals, you should be taking notes, asking them questions about the industry. You should also be doing research about the industry every single chance you get.
100%.
If you have downtime between meetings or calls, or if you're driving to a job site, you should be listening to a podcast about your industry. You should be listening to an audiobook about your industry. When you're at home at night, you should be doing research on the industry. I mean, you should be reaching out to your leadership and asking for resources and tools about knowledge of your industry. Your goal should to become an industry expert in the shortest amount of time possible.
Yeah.
I would lean on all the people on your team that have the experience.
Yep.
And you should be using decentralized command all the time. Hey guys, this is what we're doing. This is a project that we have. Here's why we're working on this project. How do you guys want to do it? Hey, Lucas, you've been doing this for 15 years. I know I'm brand new. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
How do you want to run your crews? And I'm going to sit back, and as long as it's within the guidelines of which we can operate as a company, cool. What can I do to support you?
Yep.
That would be my default the whole time.
Yeah.
And as you do that, you're going to have to fight your ego, because in the beginning, which is cool about these young new leaders, is they also bring a fresh perspective, knowledge of different technology and different ways to do that. And you're going to have good ideas. If you're detached, you're going to see things differently. What you're going to have to fight is your ego coming in right away when you see something and you're going to be like, oh, hey, we should do it this way. Or, hey, what do you think about this? Instead of saying, hey, we should do it this way. Hey, what do you guys think about doing it this way? What's your thoughts? Is this something that's applicable? Is it going to be good? Does it keep us safe? Are we going to be efficient? I would default to your senior personnel every single time.
There's a guy named Brian Grazier who wrote a book called A Curious Mind several years ago. He works with Ron Howard. They have a production company, and he's produced tons and tons of movies and television shows. one of the things he encourages people to do is if there's somebody in your industry that you see that's really successful, is shoot him an email and ask him for 30 minutes because they really want to pass on that knowledge. Mm-hmm. And like, that's one of the ways that you can use, particularly if you're in one of these industries where, you know, it's like, hey, the guys that are at the top have been at the top for a really long time.
Yeah.
Then, you know, I got an hour drive from job site to job site. Like, hey, this is a guy who runs this other crew or this other thing that they've been super successful, or they're a great manager. I want to do it. Shoot him an email. Hey, you know what? If you've got some time in the next month, I'd love to pick your brain for like 15, 20 minutes so that I can just know how to be better at my job. You'd be surprised at how many people that are in those positions are so generous and giving with their time that they're like, 100%, man.
Yeah.
Do that.
Just something to think about. You know, Groundworks, one of our clients that we've been working with, incredible growth, you know, started, you know, Jamie was saying this the other day, and Flynn was as well. Flynn Cochran, who used to work with us at Echelon Front, now works at Groundworks as one of their senior executives, been helping them grow and expand at an unreal rate.
Yeah.
And by the way, Flynn was like, I asked him again, I'm like, hey, can we get you on the podcast? He goes, if we can do it over Zoom, absolutely. I was like, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then
I've seen their Zoom setup that Jamie uses on the EO Academy on Mondays. Like, that's nice.
You can do it.
It's got a nice professional sounding stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But one of the things that, you know, and by the way, they have grown from 33 million to 1.5 billion.
That's a lot.
In 7-8 years.
I'd like to see my bank account make a similar jump.
I like the way that looks on a chart.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Same. But one of the things that, you know, we were doing an FTX with them last week. We did classroom on Monday, half-day classroom on Monday, full-day FTX on Tuesday with one group, Wednesday on a different group, and then full-day classroom on Thursday with the whole group of debrief and implementation of everything they learned and how do they actually start applying it to stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they do a bunch of follow-on implementation after we're gone. It's just part of their culture. That's what they do at Groundworks. One of the things that they talk to their crews about and encourage is when you're driving to and from the job sites, use that time to talk.
Yeah.
You know, when they're, you know, they do a debrief on site before they even load up in their trucks and leave. And then they take the drive time to continuously talk and debrief. It's part of their culture. It's what they do. They're not just driving, listening to music, you know, guys sleeping in the back or on his headphones or on his phone. Like, that is their working time. I mean, they're working through all those things when they're in the vehicle. So if you're a young leader, I would do what Lucas just said, go to the senior personnel and ask them, hey, can we spend some time in the truck together?
Yeah.
Or van or whatever vehicle you're using. I'm saying truck because most of them are construction companies. Use that time in the vehicle. Use that windshield time as a time for education. Either be listening to an audiobook, a podcast about your industry, or the best version, get those senior people in your company that have the experience, and not even the senior people that have experience. Get them in the vehicle with you. Talk to them. Ask them questions. I would, you know, ask them, hey, do you mind driving so I can be taking notes while we talk? Bro, if I had somebody ask me that, I would be thrilled because it tells me that they care, that they actually want to learn, they actually want to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So which one of these last, you know, we have some good ones here.
All right.
If you were to pick one.
Here's the one that I want. I want to start training jiu-jitsu, but I cannot get hurt. And I feel like I'm too old to start training. I'm 45. Is that too old to start training? Is it worth starting this late in life? And how can I train without getting hurt? I've got a little insight on this. I'm curious as to what you said on my 2 cents.
Yeah, go ahead. Kick it off.
One, you won't ever do anything in life without getting hurt. There's always the risk, right? Once we're over 25, getting out of bed comes with inherent risks. And I'm not just saying that like humorously, but like it's also true. Like that's where from 25 to 35, we've got this like giant window where we as men, our testosterone's reaching its peak, our muscle building years are where they're going to be, we're as healthy as we're probably ever going to be. Like those are the absolute peak years that we have for performance and athleticism. You hit this decline, and once that starts happening, everything is risky. So if you're worried about getting hurt, it has more to do with what you do every other hour of your day outside of jiu-jitsu than it has to do with what's on the mat.
Yep. And the more physically fit and healthy you are, the less those things happen.
100%.
If you're lifting weights And this isn't like, oh, you're not trying. I'm not saying be a strong man or strong woman or a bodybuilder.
Get a 15-pound kettlebell.
What I'm saying is, if you're lifting weights and getting sleep and proper nutrition, the likelihood of you getting injured doing life drastically drops. Also, are you too late to start training? Absolutely no.
No.
I know people that started training in their 50s and 60s.
Bro, I've had my white belt for 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never too late.
It's not. And, I know guys that are in their 50s and 60s that started training jiu-jitsu. Is it worth starting this late in life? Absolutely. How can I train without getting hurt? Well, one, you need to find a good gym. Mm-hmm. So I would go, and Jocko's talked about this a lot on his podcast. Go, and this is something I get asked questions all the time, and I stole it from Jocko. Go try out a couple different gyms in the area.
Yeah.
And go try it. Try
go
it for a week.
Look at the reviews.
Look at the reviews.
Yep.
Look at their Instagram page. Follow their professors.
Check them out on Fighter's Passport or Grapple app.
Yep. Yeah. And yeah, those are great resources. But the best one is going to be you actually going to the gym, trying it out. Pay for a 1-week trial. It's an investment. Make sure you're going to be in a good gym. And then one of the things that you need to do is just subordinate your ego and tell your professor, hey, this is a job I have. I cannot get hurt. Yeah. Now, I know there's a risk for training jiu-jitsu, but I need to have good training partners. Can you partner me with good training partners so that I don't get hurt? Because if I get hurt, I'm done training. I will leave this gym.
Yeah.
Because if you get hurt from somebody being an a-hole, then that professor shouldn't be tolerating that.
Right.
I know we don't tolerate that 555.
No.
Like, we pull people aside and be like, hey, I know for me, guys, like, you can go train somewhere else if they're going to keep acting that way. And also the other thing, it's on you. So when I've had injuries, but I still wanted to train, I tell every single training partner when we're drilling and when we're rolling. Here's the other thing. You don't have to roll.
No.
Live rounds. Just tell your professor, hey, I just want to do technique. I don't want to roll, because there's an inherent risk with rolling, getting hurt. But then as you get confidence, as you get healthier and stronger and better at your jiu-jitsu, you can mitigate that for sure. So don't feel rushed. Don't feel pressured to do something you don't want to do. Just have the fortitude to push back and say, hey, sir, I would rather sit out and just watch. Or ma'am, whatever your professor is, man or woman. But then also, I tell every single one of my training partners, hey, here's what I have going on. Can we just do this? Or, hey, can you avoid this? And you know what I've had every single person tell me?
Yes.
No problem.
Yeah, no factor.
And then guess what they don't do? They don't go for that injured arm or elbow or shoulder or knee or head, with when I've had the concussion stuff recently.
Yeah.
When I'm rolling with guys, I'll just tell them also, like, hey, if I tap for no reason, it's because I'm feeling the pressure in my head and I've just got to take it easy. Yeah. And they're like, all right, cool.
You want to start on the ground instead of standing up, so we're not like snapping your neck down and all that?
Exactly. Yeah, every single person. So for you, go test out a gym. I would try a few gyms in your area. Look at the Google reviews, look at their Instagram page, and then, just go test it out.
Yeah. And there is, if you're not following, I think his thing is Chris Bones, BJJ or something like that, but Chris Burns has a great resource for people who want to get into jiu-jitsu. It's a video series that just kind of teaches you how to establish your base so that you can figure out how to distribute your weight. And it's got a couple of games that we play with the kids. Dude, it's a completely free resource to help you work on timing and stuff like that. Those things are like just incredibly valuable. And Montgomery actually got to do a private lesson with him whenever he was in Florida.
Oh, rad.
And so he was like, free private to whoever Jonathan signed her up for. She's like, I don't know if I want to do it. He's like, you're going. So
that's awesome.
So it was awesome, but he's got some great free resources out there. Jesus in Jiu-Jitsu has some videos that like show some basic techniques.
Yep.
We've been doing with a bunch of different black belts. Go check out some of those things and just kind of start to work on some of those movements at home. Even if you're not training anywhere, there's not a gym close to you, do it grab one of your kids, grab a buddy. Kirsten has to do a lot of this stuff with me whenever I'm working on it at the house. I'm like, oh, that was a cool thing that from the Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu Instagram page. Like, here, put on this gi top. I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And all of those things help. Yeah. And they'll transfer to the mat eventually.
And I know there's a lot of high level black belts that are accomplished that have online programs that you can do.
Formiga's got some.
Formiga's got some. Like my friends
Stefan
at BJJ Fanatics. Yep. You can go to bjjfanatics.com and buy different courses. That way you can review those videos on your own. You can maybe have a buddy come to the house and you guys can just try working. Now, nothing will ever replace actually training under a professor.
Nope.
But it should be a supplement to what you're doing.
Yeah.
I know my dad for years did the Gracie online because he wasn't able to be into a gym training because of injuries, and he was also, my dad's like a nerd when it comes to education, and I say that in a loving way. Like he was just like loves to read and research and dive into stuff.
When I text him,
my sister definitely.
Dude, it's like a block of. It's so much information to take in.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
He's always been like that.
Yeah, he's a stud.
And always pursuing that knowledge, which I've always respected from my mom and dad, and my sister definitely got that from that.
No doubt.
That's why
little smarty pants.
Next month we're flying out to her graduation from residency as a surgeon.
That's rad, dude.
But it comes. My dad did the Gracie online thing for a while, and I know there's a lot of good resources like that. But, like I am friends with the guys that own BJJ Fanatics. They're great humans.
Check it out.
Great courses. You should go check that out.
Yeah, and then go check out a couple open mats. That'll give you a feel for the gyms, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Well, before we close it out with some final thoughts from the man, the myth, the legend, as it says on his cup, Jeremiah Dinnell. I snuck that in there.
I don't like you right now. I can't see it on the cup. I've had it out of the screen the whole time.
So before we wrap up with some final thoughts, we want to thank you guys for listening, for checking out the podcast, for commenting, and for giving us feedback like this so that we can continue to make the content that you guys want to hear. Make sure that if you're not subscribed to YouTube, go check it out. Go ting the bell. And then if you're a Spotify person, and you're like, man, I really wish the videos were on Spotify, they're coming. We've got the most recent episodes up there, and then that backlog is coming up, and our Spotify numbers have rocketed. There's a bunch of people that are rediscovering the JP Dinnell podcast through the videos on Spotify, which is pretty cool. So thanks for listening. If you want to join the conversation on social media, go check out I'm at Lucas Pinker. JP is at JP Dinnell, and check out the at JP Dinnell podcast, where we've got some stuff that's exclusive for podcast listeners, as well as a weekly thing that we're doing. You've heard us mention Jonathan and Ann Montgomery over at First in Nutrition. We're doing our Hump Day health hacks with them that are coming out on Wednesdays. Those have been a great value add, and because Jonathan and Ann are huge supporters of us, they want to support you guys too. So if you go to firstinnutrition.com/JPpod, you can get 4 weeks of free coaching from them, which is a huge value. And even if you don't get past the 4 weeks, if you get through the onboarding, you only do the 4 weeks, the stuff that they teach you in that amount of time is stuff that you can apply for the rest of your life. Go check out Echelon Front. They're tagged in a bunch of our stuff, so you can look at the JP Dinnell podcast videos, click on the links to go visit some of the stuff that's happening over at Echelon Front. Join the online academy. We talked about the online BJJ videos. Well, they've got stuff like how to introduce extreme ownership in your workplace, how to make extreme ownership part of your family and your marriage. Those video series are amazing. There's a 1 o'clock call Central Time that happens every Monday on the Extreme Ownership Online Academy. Huge value there. If you want some info, maybe on how the people over at Echelon Front can work with your business and you can get in the game with them, email info@echelonfront.com, and they can get you hooked up with all of that stuff.
And what we do at Echelon Front isn't just a one and done thing.
No, man.
We have the LDAP program that Dave developed, which is an unreal program. Yeah. So it stands for Leadership Development Alignment Program. It's where we align with your company on the issues you're having, the things that you guys are doing well. Kick it off with they have this assessment that they send out to all the people. Mm-hmm. We collect that data, and then based off that data and all the pre-event calls that we have going into it, then we develop specific curriculum for those clients.
That's
for
right.
the kickoff, and then all of the follow-on work. So that's where a company wants to partner with us for 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, 24 months, like whatever they can do and want to do, we've been able to do that. And the success with our LDAP clients is incredible to see them all growing, all expanding, safety scores improving, culture improving, productivity improving. So all the metrics, and also we're able to track those metrics and help you understand those metrics as it's tied into the leadership principles that we teach to show you the return on your investment. And the amount of return clients that we've been having is it's an unreal number.
That's freaking awesome.
And so, a lot of people just think, oh, we're just going to have, JP come in and do a keynote or a half-day workshop, and then it's like, hey, maybe we have him back next year. We do that.
Yeah.
But, we also have the LDAP program where it's like you're understanding, like, hey, leadership is an inoculation. We need to be intentional with these things. And so the LDAP program, I know we haven't talked about it much on it, which when I get Dave on here and different members of the LDAP team that are building that program, we'll dive deeper into it. But that was actually a question I got, was like, hey, if we want to work with you more than once, is that something we can do? And I was like, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
And then we talked about it a little bit a second ago, Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA. It's a ministry that JP and I are a part of. We do regular seminars we do seminars regularly throughout the year where we bring in a stud instructor, say somebody like Rafael Formiga Barbosa or Marcus Buchecha Almeida.
Yeah.
And they give some world-class instruction. We'll have somebody share the gospel, and then we just kind of hang out, man. We enjoy it. And whether you're a believer or whether you aren't, whether you have somebody who has done jiu-jitsu for years and years, or somebody who is needing their first exposure to jiu-jitsu around a community of people that are going to be awesome and great hangs, this is a great way to do it. And then if you haven't, you can go to JesusandJujitsuUSA.com, sign up for the email list there, and we've got weekly devotionals that come out, info about that stuff, alerts on new gear. You got to get into the insider program there. But then you got to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And one of the ways you do that is with those little Calico beef sticks.
Get that beef.
Come on, baby. We got our order ready to go. We're getting them for our Father's Day program. We'll be handing out bouquets of beef sticks to all the dads.
I like it.
Yeah, it's like an edible arrangement, but better. Yeah. And you got beef tallow products, which some of this stuff has been coming out on y'all's Instagram page, talking about like the nightly beef tallow routine for the kids, because they got the little lavender scent in them. Put them in the warm bath. Start to kind of bring those energy levels down a little bit. Instead of using the over-the-counter, like, we don't really know what's in this chest rub, put a little all-natural beef tallow with a little bit of lavender in there. Relax them, get them ready for nighttime. It's awesome stuff. They got the invigorating coffee body scrub exfoliator and potentially hair growth thing. I'm a couple of weeks into that experiment. I'll let you know how it goes. This hat's not on for no reason. I'm getting some wispy hairs in there, but not good ones.
It's all good.
Yeah. Email amanda@littlecattle.co if you want to be a wholesaler for any of that stuff. We got shirts coming from On the Path Printing. It's On the Path Printing on Instagram. Shoot Josh or JP a message and they'll hook you up with some of the stuff they've got going on over there. NCC shirts will be coming out hopefully at the end of summer.
Yes.
Relaunch of the Never Settle line and the super secret unapproved project. You might be seeing some stuff about that soon. And those, as soon as you see them, those Instagram posts might be taken down if somebody else with authority over that page gets them. So you're going to want to follow that page quickly and often. Leif, Jocko, JP, they got a company called Bruiser Arms. If you want to know how the men behind the legends do it, check it out. Get in touch with them. They got gear packages. They got custom training for it. They've got, and it's my favorite thing, the half face blade.
Yeah.
It is like all of the Pew stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
But the artistry and those custom half face blades is just absolutely stunning. But shoot them a message. They can get you hooked up with that. And the power behind the podcast, folks over at Jocko Fuel. Today we're formerly known as Dak Savage, but now the Black Cherry Vanilla. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So rocking those Jocko Goes. I've got the creatine going. We're using the Fruit Punch Hydrate Sticks.
So good.
We've got our kids. They think that's juice.
Yeah.
So
good.
Like Levi, when he's like, "Oh, I need juice," I'm not giving him that like from concentrate apple juice that's got like all this added sugar in it. Nope. He gets half a packet of a Jocko Hydrate in his drink in the morning, and we're sneaking in 2 grams of creatine in there. It's proven to be good for 2 and up. So that's what he gets. It gets shaken up, put it in, and every morning he's like, "I had juice for breakfast."
Yep.
Like,
yes, you did, buddy.
Well done, stud. And then he thinks he's getting away with something, but actually what he's getting away with is getting in the game at an early age. And then the folks over at Origin, so much good stuff to say about them. Completely all American made. The Origin razor that they came out with.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
It's clean.
Wonderful partnership that they had there. New boots coming out next month. And if you're not following them at Origin USA, I think on Instagram, they have some of the best polls right now. They're prototyping a bunch of new products. They're dreaming really big for sneakers, for casual shoes, for those kind of things. And they're letting the people that are going to buy them have input on what that is. It's amazing what happens when you source your audience of like, hey, would you be willing to spend $200 on this? And you're like, yeah, I would actually like 3 pairs of these. But option number 8, I'd never buy that for anybody.
Yeah.
So just really cool stuff. Make sure that you're checking that out, following them. And thanks to all of these guys for supporting the podcast. And thanks for you guys for listening.
Awesome.
What you got, homie? Bring us home.
Yeah, you know, I say this often, and I like to circle back to it as I think about the questions that we had. It's about being intentional. In order for me to become a Navy SEAL, I had to be intentional and dedicated with what I was doing. I also had to be selfish for my development and growth. Not selfish towards others, but selfish towards my development and growth. And I think if you're trying to pursue anything in life, you need to be selfish at times for your development and your growth. You need to have that alone time, that quiet time. It's, hey, be selfish and prep your food so you can eat healthy. Be selfish and be working with First in Nutrition so that you can understand like what a quality of life through your food actually looks like. Hire coaches that are going to help you develop, yourself. Be selfish with, working out, so that you can be a better version of who you are. Be selfish with your spouse and have a date night, or just go for a 30-minute walk with your spouse. Be selfish with your kids and don't go out to the bar and drink and be hungover the next day. Be selfish with doing stuff with just your kids so that you can show them that you love them, that you care about them, and that you want the best for them, and have that time, because the time is fleeting. Yeah. And so if there's something you want to go do in life, go do it. Make the commitment to yourself, to your family, to your community. Be intentional with the development of the skill sets that you need to do so you can go out and do those things. So with that, I hope this episode has been a reminder for all of us to go do the work that is needed, to put in the effort, to build your legacy, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 89.